My name is Grady. I work for JJ Bean Coffee Roasters, and today we are in the Grand Ballroom at the Vancouver Club. I'm going to take you through all the steps that go into making the perfect cup of French press coffee. There's a number of benefits to using a French press. The main one is that nothing interferes between the water and the coffee. It's called total immersion brewing, so that no filters or anything else trap those flavor oils that you want to end up in the cup. The quality of a great coffee is largely a result of how a given varietal of coffee acts with the soil and the elevation and the amount of sun, the amount of rain, and also the hand of the farmer. So when we look for a coffee, we look for those perfect conditions, and also we look for a great cup character. Full-bodied, or be thick in the mouth. We also often want to find a nice fresh acidity, or that refreshing tang you feel on the sides of your tongue. We also want it to have a nice sweetness and a pleasant lingering finish. We want to roast it in a way that highlights the coffee's origin. So we don't want to obscure the flavor of the coffee with roast taints. If you roast the coffee too light, then it's going to be sour and grainy. If you roast the coffee too dark, it's going to take on roasty, charcoaly tones that obscure the complexity and the aroma and the nuance of the coffee. So we like to roast the coffee in a way that highlights that nuance. So the whole bean acts as a barrier for the oxygen. Once you grind the coffee, it starts to stale in earnest. So it's important to keep it whole bean right up until you brew the coffee. For the French press, we're looking for a medium to coarse grind, and really the only way to produce an even grind is to use a burr grinder. So this grinder, in contrast to a blade grinder that just hacks the coffee to bits, cuts the coffee in very even pieces so that an even extraction of the flavors can take place. For this size of French press, I'm using about 50 grams. It's really important that we get the right proportion of hot water and coffee. So it's about 2 tablespoons for 6 ounces of water. If the water is too cool, the coffee is going to end up being thin and sour. If the water is too hot, you're going to burn the coffee and it's going to taste very bitter. So we've got to reach that perfect temperature. Usually means a couple minutes off boil. The coffee is bubbling up, agitated, it's giving off CO2. There's a thick head of froth on there. We call that bloom. Make sure that it only brews for about 4 minutes. I'm going to top up this coffee. This will break that crust that's formed. I'm going to sit the plunger piece so it's resting just below the water level so that all the coffee is wet. We're going to let that sit for the remainder of our time, 4 minutes. So our 4 minutes is up. It's time to plunge the coffee, nice and slow so as not to get too much silt in the coffee. And ideally I'm going to let that settle for just a couple minutes so that I get a nice, clear, fresh cup of coffee. Yeah, this coffee's fresh, aromatic, full-bodied, complex, very high quality. Just the kind of cup that you'd expect at the Vancouver Club. It's going to take a while, so. Yeah, can I just sit in the chair and like finish that up? Just give her.